We're at SMU in the archives, and this is the first in a long edition of 65th anniversary programs that we are bringing to you. Got to celebrate 65 years here in North Texas. With me, Bob Ray Sanders, who is a part of Newsroom, which when anybody talks about the history of KERA, it's either Monty Python or Newsroom.
Right.
And were you a part of it from the very beginning?
No, I was not. I was in college, senior in college when it actually started.
Okay.
But it was also interesting because Jim Lehrer, who was at the Times Herald as city editor, had actually approached me about possibly coming to work for the Times Herald once I graduated from college. He had spoken to our little fraternity group up there. And it was really interesting to find out later that, hey, they've created this program on public television called Newsroom, and Jim Lehrer is the city editor. But the premise of it was that the reporters would go out and cover their beats and come in and tell their city editor what they had found out that day on their beat. And the audience was eavesdropping on a newsroom conversation, which was the whole premise. And it was so unusual. Now, it didn't start in KERA. It actually started in San Francisco when there was a real San Francisco newspaper strike. And the Ford Foundation came in, told the people in public television, hey, we want you to put these reporters on the air. We're going to keep paying them while they go out and do their stories, and they're going to come in and talk to you. And it was so successful that Ford Foundation decided they wanted to do it in 3 other places, including Dallas. And I'm told that in Dallas, they said, this is the one that will fail because it's Dallas. You know, that had that negative.
You didn't know what Dallas was like in the early 70s.
Yeah, it's Dallas. No, they can't go for a program like this where you got these young whippersnappers coming in, giving stories, talking about leaders like they've never been talked about before in news. And so that's how it was.
Well, and there's I say it's a famous quote. We have you on tape somewhere talking about, Newsroom and really talking about the time of Newsroom. And it went something like, it was really the first time women were on the air. It was the first time minorities were on the air. And then you say, and the first time men with beards were on the air. And then there was this shot of Billy Porterfield,
Yeah, we had people with beards on. And it was interesting because at that time, no, women didn't have a place in television, really. They may have one on somewhere. They would either be doing the weather or the traffic or something. But as a rule, not serious reporters. And here we were. We had several women on the staff. We had a couple of black people on the staff, Hispanics on the staff, and we had a variety of people in terms of age. I was probably the youngest at the time that I came, but and then grew to be the oldest.
Yes, Peter Lesser, I remember it was.
Yeah, Peter Lesser, who was an attorney, and so he was our law expert.
But I think what I thought was interesting, and of course, I'm sure everybody tells you every day, could we do Newsroom again? But it was something to where what I picked up from it is that no matter what happened during the day, whether it was, involved the police, involved the fire, involved the city council, involved the mayor, whatever, you knew that person was going to be on Newsroom that night.
Yeah, we had the respect of the leadership, even though they couldn't stand us in many cases. They respected us. And when we called on them, we were sometimes, when we do these forums, we do a live forum over a hot issue, like integration, like things that were going on with redistricting, things like, issues that are right back in the news today. And we would say, hey, listen, we're going to do this show. Come on and talk about it.
Okay.
And, they come on. And of course, we were the first to do live candidate interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did, and it was novel at the time, but if we invited a candidate from one party and they agreed and the other one said, no, we're not coming, we left an empty chair and occasionally showed that chair. A county judge here, Lou Sterrett, he really hated us. He could be heard cussing, across the highway, because that newsroom, that bunch of folk at Newsroom, but they had to understand that we were bringing the leaders, the people who were leaders, to meet with those people that they were supposed to be governing. Poor people who didn't have a voice in many cases. We gave them voice.
Yeah.
Now, could it be done today? Probably not, because nowadays people pick a TV station that's going to tell them what they already want to hear. And we were trying to tell them something that they wouldn't necessarily hear unless they came to Newsroom. And of course, one of the unique things about it was that the last half or last quarter of the show, the last 15 minutes, was something called feedback. We have people, volunteers, taking calls from the listeners and the viewers who are asking us questions about the story that we're covering. And of course, Jim Lehrer, or Lee at the time that I was doing, Lee Clark, would say, Aubrey, what about that? I said, I don't know. And of course, if you didn't know, you were supposed to say, I didn't know. You didn't make up something.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, you don't know tonight, but you'll have it for us tomorrow. I mean, you get a sign right on the air. So you knew what you were going to be doing the next day because somebody called in and asked a question that we were to provide an answer to.
We would have a 4 o'clock meeting, and where everybody would bring in what they had. There were no assignments. Jim, of course, was moderating at the time. I became moderator when he moved to Washington. You had really no idea what these reporters were going to say, and you had to listen very hard for libel suits, figuring out what you had to correct at that moment. And but it was exhilarating.
And I can imagine there was kind of a catch-22 because the people who were going to be on the show that night, it was beyond the 30-second
Absolutely.
sound bite.
Yeah.
But it was also, and I've read, articles over the years, there's kind of a nervousness about being on also.
Well, for the guests?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the show was very controversial. It had not, that kind of candor in journalism had not been seen in Dallas. You have to remember that the Dallas Morning News owned WFAA, the Times Herald KRLD, and the Fort Worth, was it the Star Telegram, the NBC outlet. And so it only took 3 phone calls to kill a story. And that was done all the time. But the thing about Newsroom, what we understood is, you don't have to skewer someone. All you have to do is quote him correctly.
Right.
And we did. That was unheard of, too. I mean, some of them, to quote them correctly, was pretty attention-getting, shall we say.
I can just imagine, when you're talking about a daily show, and it was an hour, but you had feedback. Wasn't the last 15 minutes?
Oh, yes. The
live?
viewers would call in
Live
with their
call
questions, and they would say things like, you think you're a rocket scientist. Well, you're not. But the feedback was fun.
And some of the things I remember, and it was okay to say for somebody who was on the show, it was like, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yeah, and they would find out.
Somebody would call in, and then that would be something that you would look forward to.
In the show that you are about to allow people to see, it is astonishing how good it is. I watched it just yesterday, and there was a desegregation busing case in Dallas, very big deal. Charlotte Mecklenburg was the case out of North Carolina, I think. Decided by the Supreme Court, busing kids hither and there, and people were very upset about it. The parents were on edge. Where are their children going to go? And Harlan Cohen is the one to watch for. He was a young lawyer. He was on Newsroom at the time, and simply superb. I mean, he understood that court order, and it didn't happen on this program, but on other programs, parents would call in and say, now, I live here. Where's my child going? Harlan could tell them.
The desegregation thing, we were the one covering it better than anybody else because nobody else cared. I mean, they would do a story if there was a sub kind of demonstration or whatever, but we had Susan Caudill later, after Hart, would come and she was talking to the judge. She was having conversations with the judge. She was talking to the lawyers. We were bringing those people on to tell us what they needed to say to the people, and we were going to try to explain it as best we could. And so we were seen as provocateurs, really, because they thought that we...
Because you're informing
you're
electorate.
informing them. And it's like you're trying to make this thing happen. Well, the courts have said it's got to happen. So we're just trying to tell the people how and why it's not happening. We had some of the city's decision makers in that room. There were times when we did those kind of town halls. We had a quorum of the city council on occasion, which is good, but I guess called illegal gathering, but but that's what we did.
We so much appreciate you spending time with us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
All right, enjoy Newsroom, the desegregation special. This is from 1971 on KERA.